Fire-broken money, the old man bought the young slave for $5. But what he did next collision changed everything. The sun was just beginning to rise over the small town, its light spilling over the dusty streets and wooden buildings. The air smelled of hay, sweat, and the faint scent of wood smoke from the chimneys of the early risers. Markets were coming alive with merchants calling out their goods, fresh vegetables, chickens, and worn-out tools. People moved quickly, bargaining and trading, focused on making the most of the day. In the middle of all this chaos, a quiet figure made his way slowly through the crowd. The man was old, his back slightly bent, his face lined with deep wrinkles. His hands, rough and calloused, told the story of a life spent working with the earth, the animals and tools. He didn't wear fancy clothes, just simple, sturdy ones, but there was something about the way he moved, the calm in his eyes, that made people notice him without even realizing it. He walked steadily, not in a rush like the others, yet with purpose, as if he knew exactly where he was headed. At the center of the market, a group of people had gathered, whispering and pointing. Their attention was fixed on a small boy, no older than 12 or 13, standing nervously in front of a man who seemed to be his owner. The boy's clothes were torn and dirty, his hair unkempt, and his small frame made him look even younger. He shifted from one foot to the other, glancing at the crowd, unsure of what was happening or what might happen next. The old man paused a few steps away, his eyes studying the boy with interest. There was a spark in the boy's eyes, something that went beyond fear or sadness. It was the glimmer of intelligence, of curiosity, of someone who had survived hardships yet refused to be broken. Most people saw nothing but a cheap laborer, a boy worth very little. But the old man saw potential, the kind of potential that could be nurtured with patience and care. $5, the man selling the boy said, his voice loud to draw attention. $5 and he's yours, the crowd murmured. Some shook their heads, thinking the price too low, others whispered that the boy wasn't worth much at all. But the old man didn't hesitate. He reached into his pocket, took out 5 coins, and laid them on the counter. The coins clinked as they landed, small yet heavy with meaning. He looked at the boy and smiled gently, a smile that seemed to say, "I will not hurt you. I see you." The man selling the boy nodded, pocketed the coins, and stepped aside. The crowd slowly dispersed, leaving the old man and the boy alone in the center of the market. For a moment, the boy's eyes were wide with confusion and fear. No one had ever treated him like this before, not with respect, not with patience. The old man extended his hand. "Come with me," he said softly. His voice was calm, steady, and kind, carrying a promise the boy wasn't sure he could trust. The boy hesitated, his small hand trembling as he reached out. When he finally took the old man's hand, it felt different from the harsh grips he had known. It was firm but not rough, strong but gentle. The old man guided him through the busy streets, past the shouting merchants and the animals clucking and braying in cages. People watched them go, some curious, some skeptical, but the old man didn't notice. He focused only on the boy walking beside him, guiding him with care, making sure he didn't stumble on the uneven cobblestones. As they walked, the old man spoke quietly. "Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you, you're safe now." The boy didn't respond at first. Words were hard for him, especially when trust had been broken so many times in his short life. But he listened, and slowly a small sense of relief began to grow inside him. Perhaps this man was different. Perhaps he truly cared. They reached the edge of town, where the streets became less crowded and the smell of dust and earth replaced the smells of the market. The old man's home appeared, a small, sturdy cabin surrounded by a garden and a few animals. Chickens clucked in the yard, a horse nickered softly in the stable, and smoke rose gently from the chimney. It was humble, but it radiated warmth and life, a stark contrast to the harsh, chaotic world the boy had known. "Welcome home," the old man said, opening the door. The boy stepped inside slowly, his eyes taking in the modest space. The cabin was simple, with a table, a few chairs, and a fireplace. But it felt safe. It felt like a place where someone could start over, where someone could belong. The old man gave the boy a bowl of porridge, warm and simple but nourishing. "Eat," he said kindly. "You must be hungry." The boy nodded silently and began to eat, the food tasting richer than anything he had known before. As he ate, the old man watched quietly, not pressing him with questions, not forcing conversation. He understood that trust could not be rushed. It had to grow slowly, like a plant nurtured over time. After the boy had eaten, the old man led him outside to the garden. "This will be your work too," he said, showing the boy the rows of vegetables and herbs. "You will learn to care for them, and they will care for you in return. You will learn to feed the animals, mend the tools, and help me around the house. But always remember, I expect honesty and effort. You will never be punished for mistakes if you are honest." The boy listened, absorbing every word. The old man's tone was not commanding but encouraging. There was no fear in his instructions, only guidance. For the first time in his life, the boy felt a small spark of hope. Perhaps he could belong somewhere. Perhaps he could learn to be more than just a boy sold for a few coins. Days turned into weeks, and the old man kept his promises. He taught the boy how to feed the chickens without startling them, how to clean the stable efficiently, how to repair broken tools using simple techniques. He shared stories from his own life, lessons learned through hardship and perseverance. Each evening they would sit by the fireplace, and the old man would speak of courage, honesty, and kindness. The boy listened, fascinated, feeling a sense of belonging he had never known. Slowly, the boy began to change. Fear in his eyes was replaced by curiosity. Hesitation in his movements gave way to confidence. He started to ask questions, to show initiative, to smile at the old man without the shadow of fear. The townspeople noticed the change too. They saw the boy working diligently, learning quickly, and treating the animals with care. They whispered among themselves, amazed at how someone so young could become so responsible. The old man never boasted. He never spoke of the boy as property or labor. To him, the boy was not a servant, not a purchase, not a slave to be commanded. He was a young life with potential, a life worth nurturing. And in nurturing the boy, the old man found a renewed sense of purpose. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low in the sky, the old man placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Do you see," he said gently, "how much you have learned in just a few weeks? You are capable of more than you realize. Remember this feeling. Remember that effort and honesty matter more than strength or size." The boy looked up, eyes wide, absorbing the words. For the first time, he believed that someone truly cared about him, that someone believed in his abilities. He didn't fully understand the old man's wisdom, but he felt it deep in his heart. He felt the warmth of guidance, the power of trust, and the spark of hope for a life that could be different from the one he had known. The sun set, casting long shadows across the garden. The boy helped gather the animals for the night, and the old man stood nearby, watching silently, proud but humble. The boy no longer walked beside him in fear. He walked with a small, budding sense of confidence, knowing that someone had seen him not for what he was, but for what he could become. And so, in that quiet cabin at the edge of a dusty town, a simple act, the purchase of a boy for $5, became the beginning of a story far greater than either of them could have imagined. It was the start of trust, the start of guidance, the start of a bond that would shape the boy's life forever. After the first weeks passed, the boy began to settle into a rhythm at the old man's cabin. Each morning the rooster crowed, and he would rise with it, rubbing the sleep from his eyes and stretching his stiff limbs. The world outside could be harsh and unforgiving, but here, under the old man's quiet guidance, he felt safe. More than that, he felt alive, capable, and slowly, for the first time, like he belonged somewhere. The old man never demanded more than the boy could give, but he never allowed laziness or carelessness either. Every task, from feeding the chickens to mending a fence, was an opportunity to learn. The boy began to notice patterns in the work, small lessons hidden in the mundane. He learned that the chickens preferred grain spread in a circle, that a fence left unchecked could collapse under its own weight, and that a tool cared for properly could last many years longer. One morning, the old man handed the boy a small, worn hammer. "This," he said, "is not just a tool. It is a way to fix what is broken, to build what can grow, and to make life easier for those around you. Use it wisely." The boy took the hammer, feeling the weight in his small hand. At first, he swung it awkwardly, missing the nail and hitting the wooden beam instead. The hammer bounced back with a small thud, startling him, but the old man did not scold him. Instead, he gently adjusted the boy's grip, showing him how to hold it steady, how to measure the distance, how to strike with care. "Strength is not everything," the old man said softly. "Patience and precision matter more than force. A strong arm can break a tool, but a steady hand can build something lasting." The boy listened, and with practice he began to improve. Nails went into wood cleanly, fences became stronger, and even small repairs around the cabin became his responsibility. Each task completed brought a sense of accomplishment he had never known before. It was not just work. It was proof that he could learn, grow, and succeed. But the old man's lessons were not limited to chores and tools. He also taught the boy about life itself, through stories, questions, and quiet conversations. One afternoon, as they sat under the shade of an old oak tree, the old man asked, "What would you do if someone was cruel to you if they tried to hurt or cheat you?" The boy hesitated. His mind flashed to moments of fear, hunger, and betrayal he had faced before. He wanted to answer, but he wasn't sure what the right answer was. "Honesty," the old man said finally. "Always honesty. Stand your ground with truth, not with anger. Learn to recognize danger, but never let fear or hatred control your heart. It is easy to be cruel when you are angry, but it takes courage to be just." The boy thought about this as he watched the leaves sway in the gentle breeze. It was a lesson he did not fully understand yet, but he felt its weight. Over time, he began to see that the old man's teachings were not just about work, they were about how to live. About how to be someone others could trust, someone who could face challenges with courage instead of fear. Each day, the boy grew more confident, more curious. He began asking questions about the world, about people, about life itself. Why did some people treat others poorly? Why did some work hard yet still struggle? Why did kindness seem so rare? The old man answered patiently, never rushing, always encouraging the boy to think for himself. "You must watch, learn, and think," he said one evening as they repaired a broken fence together. "Life will teach you many things, but you must notice them. Observe people, their actions, their words. Ask yourself why they act as they do. Learn from everyone, even those who seem small or unimportant. There is wisdom everywhere if you are willing to see it." The boy began to notice the small lessons in everything around him. He watched the animals carefully, learning their habits. He noticed how the plants grew, how weather changed the soil, how seasons affected the land. Each observation became a tool, a lesson, a story of its own. The world was no longer a place of fear and confusion. It was a place to understand, explore, and grow. One morning, the old man called the boy over to the stable. "Today, you will feed the horse," he said. "Not just give it food, but care for it, notice its needs, and understand it." The boy approached the horse slowly, remembering the old man's words. He spoke softly, offering the food in his hands. The horse snorted but didn't back away. The boy brushed its coat carefully, noticing small scratches and knots in the mane. He felt the horse's warmth, its strength, its patience. By the end of the task, the boy understood that care and attention were not only for work, they were for life itself. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. The boy and the old man developed a rhythm together. The old man noticed small changes. The boy's hands were steadier, his posture stronger, his eyes brighter. The boy noticed changes in himself too. He could think more clearly, act more confidently, and face small fears without panic. They shared quiet laughter over mistakes, small celebrations when tasks were done well, and long conversations about life when the work was finished. One evening, as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and gold, the boy asked the old man, "Will I ever be able to leave this place and do things on my own?" The old man looked at him, a soft smile on his face. "Yes," he said, "but first you must learn. Learn to stand on your own, to think for yourself, to act with courage and kindness. One day you will take these lessons into the world. You will help others just as I have helped you, and you will remember it all began with small steps." The boy thought about this. It was strange to hear that his life could be more than just work, more than just survival. The idea of hope, of a future where he could make choices, where he could be free in his own way, was almost unbelievable. Yet he felt it stirring in his chest like a quiet fire. Challenges still came. There were moments when he struggled to lift a heavy load, moments when he doubted himself, moments when he wanted to give up. But each time the old man was there, not to scold, not to push, but to guide. "Try again," he would say. "You can do more than you think. Every failure is a step toward learning." The boy began to see that effort mattered more than talent. That mistakes were not shameful but opportunities. That courage was not the absence of fear but the choice to act in spite of it. Slowly, he became more than the boy who had been sold for $5 in the market. He became a young person learning to navigate life, guided by wisdom, patience, and care. In the quiet evenings, they would sit by the fire and talk about things beyond work. The old man shared stories of people he had met, of lessons he had learned, of mistakes he had made and regrets he had overcome. The boy listened, fascinated. He began to dream, not in fanciful ways, but in ways that made sense to him. He imagined a life where he could help others, where he could use the skills he had learned, where he could make a difference. One day, as they worked side by side in the garden, the old man paused and said, "Do you know why I bought you for $5?" The boy shook his head, curious. "Because," the old man said slowly, "I saw what others did not. I saw that you were capable of more than anyone realized. I saw potential, and I wanted to help it grow. Life is full of small chances, and sometimes you must take them, even when no one else believes in you. I believe in you, and that is all that matters for now." The boy felt a swell of emotion he could not put into words. Gratitude, respect, hope, it all mixed together in a feeling so strong it made his chest ache. For the first time, he understood that someone truly saw him, not just as a laborer or a boy for sale, but as a person with value, with a future, with a place in the world. And so, under the old man's guidance, the boy continued to learn, to grow, and to discover the strength inside himself. The lessons were not always easy, the days not always simple, but each step brought him closer to understanding who he could become. Trust had been built, patience had been learned, and a bond had formed, one that would shape the boy's life in ways he could not yet imagine. The small cabin at the edge of town was more than a home now. It was a place of learning, of hope, of transformation. And within its walls, a boy once sold for $5 was slowly becoming a young man ready to face the world, guided by the wisdom, kindness, and care of the old man who had believed in him when no one else did. The seasons began to change, and the boy, who had once been timid and unsure, was now stronger, more confident, and more aware of the world around him. He could manage chores, care for the animals, tend the garden, and repair the tools with skill. But the old man knew that true growth comes not just from learning routines, but from facing challenges. And so, he began giving the boy tasks that tested not only his hands, but his mind, his patience, and his courage. One morning, the old man called the boy to the barn. "Today I have something important for you," he said. "I need you to take care of the animals while I go into town. Watch everything carefully. Notice changes. Act if anything seems wrong. Do you understand?" The boy nodded eagerly, feeling a mix of pride and responsibility. This was more than work, this was trust. The old man handed him a small notebook and a pencil. "If you see anything unusual, write it down. Pay attention to details. Remember, even small things can become big problems if ignored." With the old man gone, the boy moved through the barn and yard carefully, checking each animal, ensuring the chickens had fresh water, the horse was fed, and the goats were secure. As he worked, he noticed small details he had not paid attention to before. The way a horse's coat could show illness, the way a goat would behave when it was uncomfortable, the way a fence board could weaken and bend. He recorded everything in the notebook, proud that he could do more than just follow instructions. He could observe, think, and act on his own. Suddenly, a noise came from the far corner of the yard. The boy turned quickly and saw a small group of stray dogs approaching. They were thin and hungry, their teeth bared in warning. The boy froze for a moment, his heart pounding. He had faced fear before, but this was different. These animals could cause real harm. He remembered the old man's lessons. Stay calm, think. Act wisely. He ran to the chicken coop and closed the gate securely, then fetched a long stick and used it to guide the dogs away from the yard without harming them. The animals began to back off, and finally, the dogs wandered toward the road, leaving the boy and the farm safe. By the time the old man returned, the boy had cleaned up the yard, fed the animals, and even recorded his observations about the stray dogs in his notebook. The old man studied the notes carefully, his eyes gleaming with pride. "You handled that well," he said. "You stayed calm, acted wisely, and protected the animals. That is the mark of someone growing stronger, someone learning not just skills, but judgment." Over the next few weeks, the boy faced more challenges. A sudden storm damaged part of the roof, leaving water dripping into the cabin. The boy worked tirelessly to patch the leaks, using skills the old man had taught him. He learned to anticipate problems before they became disasters, to fix small issues before they became big ones, and to rely on his own judgment as much as the old man's guidance. One day, a traveling merchant came to the farm, offering to buy some of the old man's produce at a higher price than usual. The old man was out running errands, so he asked the boy to negotiate with the merchant. At first, the boy felt nervous. Negotiation was new, and he worried he might ask for too little or too much. But he remembered the lessons he had learned. Observe carefully, speak honestly, act with respect, and trust in your own abilities. He offered the produce at a fair price, explained the quality and effort that went into growing it, and listened to the merchant's concerns. In the end, the merchant smiled, agreeing to the price, and praised the boy for his honesty and skill. The boy's confidence grew with each success. He realized that he could face challenges, make decisions, and act wisely, even when the old man was not present. This was a new kind of freedom, not freedom from work, but freedom from fear, uncertainty, and self-doubt. But growth often comes with harder lessons, and one afternoon, the boy faced his greatest challenge yet. A neighboring farm had a problem with a loose animal, a cow that had wandered onto the old man's property and was now causing chaos in the garden. The boy had to act quickly. He knew the cow could destroy the vegetables and harm the smaller animals if left unchecked. He ran to the barn and grabbed a rope, then approached the cow slowly, speaking in calm, reassuring tones. The animal was frightened and aggressive, but the boy remembered the old man's advice: patience, observation, and gentle guidance. He managed to loop the rope around the cow, steadying it and leading it back to its own property. When the old man returned that evening, he found the boy exhausted but smiling. "You did well today," he said quietly, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "You faced fear, thought clearly, and acted with courage. This is how a person grows, not through easy days, but through the days when the world tests you." The boy beamed with pride. He understood now that his growth was not just about chores or lessons, but about facing real situations, making decisions, and learning from the results. Every challenge he faced, no matter how small, strengthened his confidence and shaped his character. Weeks passed, and the bond between the old man and the boy grew stronger. They shared quiet moments of reflection, discussing life, morality, and the importance of helping others. The boy realized that true strength came not from physical ability alone, but from wisdom, patience, and courage in difficult situations. One evening, as they sat by the fire, the old man spoke of kindness. "There will be people in your life who are unkind, who will judge you unfairly or try to take advantage. You cannot control them, but you can control yourself. Be fair, be honest, and help those who are in need. That is how you build a life worth living." The boy nodded, feeling the weight of the lesson. He understood that life would not always be easy, but he now had the tools to face it. He had learned to act with courage, think critically, and approach problems with patience and honesty. He was no longer a boy who had been sold for $5. He was someone learning to navigate the world with wisdom and integrity. One day, a serious challenge arrived in the form of a neighbor's dishonest claim. The neighbor accused the boy of damaging property that the cow had destroyed, hoping to blame him for the chaos. The boy felt a surge of fear and frustration. For a moment, he considered staying silent, fearing the neighbor's anger. But he remembered the lessons he had learned from the old man. He gathered his thoughts carefully, recalled the events, and spoke calmly, explaining what had happened and showing the evidence in his notebook. The neighbor was surprised, and seeing the boy's honesty and clarity, could not argue further. The old man, who had witnessed the interaction from a distance, smiled. "You handled that perfectly. You did not react with anger or fear, but with calm and truth. That is courage. That is wisdom, and that is what life will ask of you many times." The boy realized that growth was not just about doing tasks well, but about developing character, making choices with integrity, and facing fear with courage. Each challenge he faced became a stepping stone, each decision a lesson, and each moment of responsibility a proof of his growth. By the end of the season, the boy had transformed. He was capable, confident, and observant. He could manage tasks independently, negotiate fairly, handle fear calmly, and act wisely in unexpected situations. The old man looked at him with pride, knowing that the boy was ready to face even greater challenges in life. The boy also noticed changes in himself that went beyond skills. He felt a sense of purpose, a growing confidence in his abilities, and a desire to help others as the old man had helped him. He began to dream not only for himself, but for a life where he could make a difference, where he could use his knowledge and courage to protect, teach, and guide others. One afternoon, as they worked side by side repairing a fence, the boy paused and looked at the old man. "Do you think I can handle bigger challenges one day?" he asked. The old man smiled warmly. "You have already handled challenges most boys your age could not, but the greatest lessons come not from success, but from mistakes and difficulties. You will face more and you will grow stronger each time. Always remember, think clearly, act honestly, and trust in yourself. That is how you face any challenge." The boy nodded, understanding the truth in the words. He felt ready, not because life had become easy, but because he had learned how to meet life with courage, wisdom, and patience. The old man had given him more than skills. He had given him the ability to navigate the world with integrity. And so the boy continued to grow, facing challenges that tested not only his strength and skill, but his character. Each obstacle became a lesson, each success a proof of growth, and each moment of courage a step toward becoming the person he was meant to be. In the quiet farm at the edge of the town, the boy was no longer just someone bought for $5. He was a young man learning the ways of life, guided by wisdom, shaped by challenges, and strengthened by trust, ready for the days to come. The seasons had come and gone, and the boy, once timid and unsure, had grown into a young man under the guidance of the old man. His hands were strong from work, his mind sharp from lessons, and his heart steady from the many challenges he had faced. The farm, once a place of simple survival, had become a home, a school, and a sanctuary where the boy had discovered his own strength. One morning, the old man called the young man to the porch. "Today, you will do something very important," he said. "I will be gone for most of the day, and the farm will be yours to manage. Everything that happens, you must handle." The young man felt a mixture of pride and nervousness. He had handled challenges before, but managing the farm alone for a full day was different. Yet he remembered all the lessons he had learned, the careful observation of animals, the importance of honesty, patience in every task, and courage when faced with fear. He nodded confidently. "I understand," he said. As soon as the old man left, the young man set to work. He checked the animals, repaired fences, and tended the garden. He moved through the farm with confidence, noticing things others might have missed: a loose board on the chicken coop, a patch of weeds threatening the vegetables, and a small leak in the roof. He fixed each problem with care, applying everything the old man had taught him. Around noon, a traveler arrived at the farm. He was a merchant looking to buy fresh produce and eggs. The young man welcomed him politely, offered him a seat, and began discussing prices. The merchant tried to take advantage of the young man's inexperience, offering less than the value of the goods. But the young man remembered the lessons on negotiation and honesty. He calmly explained the quality of the produce, the care that went into growing it, and suggested a fair price for both. The merchant was impressed. "You are wise beyond your years," he said. "Most people would accept the first price I offered. But you have explained clearly and acted fairly. That is rare." The young man felt a quiet pride. It was not just about money or success. It was proof that he had learned to act with integrity, courage, and confidence. He had become more than a boy once sold for $5. He had become someone capable of handling responsibility and respect. As the day went on, the young man faced more challenges. A sudden storm arrived, bringing heavy rain and strong winds. He rushed to secure the animals, tie down loose boards, and cover the crops. The rain pounded the roof, water seeped through cracks, and the wind threatened to tear the fences apart. Yet he did not panic. He acted swiftly, using the skills and knowledge the old man had taught him. He worked tirelessly, ensuring that nothing was lost or damaged. When the storm passed, he inspected the farm carefully. Everything was in order. The animals were safe, the crops unharmed, and the fences secure. The young man felt a deep satisfaction. He had faced fear and uncertainty, and he had succeeded. For the first time, he realized the full extent of what he had learned. In the late afternoon, the old man returned. He saw the farm in perfect order and the young man standing tall and confident. A quiet smile appeared on the old man's face. "You did well today," he said. "Not because the tasks were easy, but because you faced them with courage, thought, and care. That is how you grow stronger, not by avoiding challenges, but by meeting them head-on." The young man felt a rush of gratitude. He understood that the old man's guidance had been more than just teaching work or skills. It had been teaching him how to live. He had learned honesty, patience, courage, and responsibility. He had learned to think clearly, act wisely, and face fear without hesitation. He had learned the value of trust and the power of kindness. In the weeks that followed, the young man began to take on more responsibilities independently. He managed the farm, cared for the animals, negotiated with merchants, and even helped neighbors with small tasks. People in the town noticed the change. The boy who had once been sold for $5 was now respected, capable, and trusted. They whispered among themselves, amazed at his growth and character. One day, a neighbor faced a crisis. A small fire had started in his barn, threatening to spread to nearby fields. The young man rushed to help, using the knowledge and courage he had gained. He organized the neighbors, guided them in controlling the fire, and worked tirelessly until the danger had passed. His quick thinking and bravery prevented a disaster, earning him gratitude and respect from everyone involved. That evening, as he returned to the cabin, the old man met him at the door. "You did well today," he said, his voice full of pride. "Not just in action, but in character. You did not panic, you did not act rashly, and you helped others in need. That is the mark of a person ready to face life fully." The young man felt a deep sense of accomplishment. He realized that all the lessons, the hard work, the challenges, and even the small daily tasks had prepared him for this moment. He had grown not just in skill, but in spirit, wisdom, and confidence. In the following months, the young man continued to flourish. He began teaching younger children in the village, sharing lessons of honesty, courage, and patience. He helped neighbors in need, guided travelers, and worked tirelessly to improve the farm. His reputation as a trustworthy and capable young man spread, and people began to seek his advice and guidance. The old man watched quietly, proud but humble. He had seen the boy grow from fear and uncertainty into a confident young man, capable of handling challenges, making decisions, and helping others. He knew that his role as a mentor was coming to an end, but he also knew that the boy's journey was only beginning. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant shades of orange and pink, the old man placed a hand on the young man's shoulder. "Do you understand now why I bought you for $5? He asked. The young man nodded, a smile on his face. "Yes," he said. "Not because of the price, but because you saw me, believed in me, and helped me become more than I was. You gave me a chance to grow, to learn, and to find myself." The old man smiled, tears glistening in his eyes. "Exactly. That is all I ever wanted. You have learned well, worked hard, and become a person others can trust and respect. Remember these lessons, carry them with you, and help others as you have been helped. That is the greatest reward in life." The young man felt a warmth in his chest. He realized that his life had been forever changed by one simple act of kindness. The old man buying him for $5, not as property, but as someone worth nurturing. That single act had given him guidance, trust, and the opportunity to discover his own strength. Years passed, and the young man's life continued to flourish. He built a home, cared for his own farm, and helped many in the village. The lessons he had learned under the old man's guidance stayed with him, shaping his character and guiding his decisions. People admired him not just for his skills, but for his integrity, wisdom, and kindness. He often remembered the day he had been sold for $5, the fear in his heart, and the uncertainty of what lay ahead. He remembered the old man's calm voice, gentle guidance, and unwavering belief in him. That day, that single choice, had set him on a path to a life filled with purpose, respect, and hope. And so, the boy who had once been bought for $5 became a young man who had the power to shape his own destiny. He had learned that true wealth was not in coins or possessions, but in trust, knowledge, courage, and kindness. He had learned that even the smallest acts of faith and care could change a life forever. The old man grew older, but he never regretted his decision. He had given the boy a chance, and in return, he had witnessed the transformation of a life. The bond they shared remained strong, built on trust, respect, and the shared experience of growth. In the quiet evenings, they would sit together on the porch, watching the sun set over the fields, reflecting on the journey they had shared. The young man would smile, remembering the lessons, the challenges, and the guidance that had shaped him. And the old man would smile, knowing that his belief in the boy had created a ripple that would last for generations. The story of the boy and the old man became a quiet legend in the village, a story of trust, growth, courage, and the power of one act of kindness. People spoke of it with respect, and parents often told it to their children as a lesson in integrity, perseverance, and hope. And through it all, the young man never forgot the lesson that had started it all. That every life has potential, that trust and guidance can transform fear into courage, and that a single act of belief in someone can change the course of a life forever. In the end, the boy who had been sold for $5 was not defined by the price, nor by his beginnings, but by the choices he made, the lessons he learned, and the courage he carried in his heart. And the old man, who had seen the spark in a young boy and nurtured it, knew that the greatest gift he could give had been realized in full. Life had changed, but the bond between them remained unbroken, a testament to the power of care, trust, and the simple belief that every person, no matter how small or overlooked, could become something extraordinary.